We're finding a lot of clients who are not able to close on their deals. Does it make financial sense to you? Can you even afford it? And what makes sense to you? Does it make sense to just kind of walk away and deal with the consequences and the repercussions of getting sued by the builder, or dealing with the financial burden of that private mortgage? I think, you made that decision to go into it yourself. Now you got to deal with the consequences. Builders don't necessarily have to agree to cooperate. They don't have, there's no legal obligation for them to cooperate in any way. Some do and some don't, right? And so consumers need to understand that, you might be in a situation where there is no way out, and you're going to have to deal with whatever implications happen afterwards by not closing on that deal.
Welcome to the Ontario Homeowners Show. I'm Mohsen Lakhani, and this is the show where we get real about what it takes to own, maintain, and love your home. From renovations to raising a family, legal insights to mental health, no topic is off limits. This is about real people, real value, and real conversations to help you live better, right where you are. Each week, I sit down with trusted experts, service professionals, and local change makers to bring you the strategies, stories, and solutions that make homeownership easier. This is the Ontario Homeowners Show, powered by Devon Real Estate Advisors. Are you ready? Let's go. Thank you so much, Ed, for being here. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation, especially because legal issues are one of the most intimidating parts of homeownership for a lot of people, and for good reason. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about property law. How'd you guys get started?
Yeah, so I'm a post 10, 11-year call lawyer. I primarily started off just in real estate. I worked in a boutique law firm downtown Toronto, and my entire career has been focused on the legal side of the real estate transaction. So I don't really know much about anything else other than that. And our firm, as the name speaks for itself, property law pretty much only handles real estate transactions. Primarily, we do some wills and estates as well, but our primary focus is on real estate transactions. So both mainly residential, but commercial. And then we also do a lot of refinances for clients as well under our other brand called Refi Law. The same law firm, but it's just a different branded sort of product. And they just focus strictly on sort of institutional refinances. And yeah, so like our main focus, all the lawyers that work in property law only do real estate transactions, and a few of them, handful of them, do wills, estates, powers of attorneys. So no criminal, no family law. Our education, our experience, everything is years and years of just doing real estate transactions every single day, every week, every month, all year long.
Nice. Thank you for laying that foundation. We all know legal matters get a little bit personal and emotional, especially in the market that we're in, and especially when it's somebody's largest asset that they probably own. Can you share a little bit of an insight or a story of how you helped a homeowner through a tricky legal situation?
Yeah. So I think at the moment, the majority of our tricky, sticky situations are definitely in the new construction side of transactions. We're finding a lot of clients who are not able to close on their deals. Maybe, the interest rates on occupancy fees are a lot higher because the interest rate market's a lot higher. So those are a tough situation for them to deal with. And so we are trying to sort of work with clients and figure out creative ways to get them through to final closing. So usually first step would be getting through occupancy on a condo most of the time if it's not a freehold. And so, trying to kind of discuss with them different options, discussing with builders, are there other options out there for them to reduce occupancy fees or maybe delay occupancy fees? So you still got to pay them. I don't think any builder is ever willing to sort of cut it in half, for example, but they might be willing to kind of work with you on finding a solution that works for everyone. So that's what we've been doing lately, is just trying to figure out different ways that are creative to get them to still close, and everyone's kind of happy for the most part. And I think in some scenarios, it's even maybe just the solution is just, okay, well, walk away from the deal. Maybe there is no other option. It's just can't close on this deal. There's always the option of potentially getting a private mortgage or something like that that helps you. And but you might be overstretching yourself financially where you're getting multiple mortgages on different properties, or one on your primer home, one on the new home that you're buying. Maybe you have a rental property, you put a second or third mortgage on that one too, and all those fees add up. And so the question is, adding up all those fees, does it make financial sense to you? Can you even afford it? Can you even manage those payments? A year from now, when those mortgages, because most privates are for 1 year, a year from now, what are you going to do with those mortgages? You got to refinance them, or you got to find another private mortgage where you're going to pay more fees on that private mortgage, right? So it's making sort of a calculated decision. Do you go down that road with private mortgaging, private financing to get the deal closed?
Hmm.
Because institutional is not an option, let's say, for you. Or do you just walk away from the deal and hope that the builder doesn't sue you? And if they do sue you, trying to understand what are they going to sue you for. So usually they would sue you for any losses that they suffer. Typically those come out of the deposits that they've paid already, right? And so, if you release $100,000 to the builder because that was your deposit, and the builder only suffers $100,000, well, there's really no loss there, right? But maybe there's some additional commissions or something like that. Will they even sue you for that? Maybe, maybe not. Nobody really knows. But it's a small enough amount that maybe they won't, but no one really knows, right? So, but you're still trying to create sort of having the discussion with the client to figure out what are the different options, right? Like, all we're here for is to give them different routes. The client at the end of the day has to pick which route they're going to take, but we're here to kind of give them information. They then decide how they're going to act on that information, whether
Hmm.
it's to their benefit or detriment. Like, nobody really knows at the end of the day. But our concept that we try and work on is, here's the information. You make a decision at the end of the day on what you want to do.
Right.
And there's not, like, we're not perfect. We can't necessarily give all the information. So, we usually disclose that to the client as well. And a lot of the discussions at that point usually have to happen with mortgage brokers, real estate agents, right? Like, what is the market value of the property? What is the true market value? If is it $200,000 less than its current value, or is it $100,000 less than its current value? And I mean, sometimes realtors can't necessarily figure out what the exact market value is, but you have an idea roughly. And so giving that information to the client at that point, so they can help them make the decision if it's going to cost them 200,000 or 100,000 or maybe only 50,000 or whatever that number is, right?
Hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, it comes down to some sort of number, right? And you got to figure out what that number is. So it's a calculated guess. It's a guess at the end of the day because no one knows what's going to happen. But we're there to try to help them gather the information or where they need to go and look for that information if we don't have it, and then make a decision on what it is that you want to do. And we then help to try and figure out with the builder what those negotiations will be. Um, and then that's part of the process too in terms of calculating fees, because we charge money for that as well. It's usually on an hourly rate.
Hmm.
So that has to get calculated as well. And I've helped clients. I've had one client actually where we managed to get her a complete release, and I think she was just lucky because most builders are not releasing people at the moment until they figure out what their losses are. Um, and it's still quite new, so I've heard of some clients getting sued from builders from walking away from deals. I don't know what's going on with some of the other ones because it's still fresh and new. And then there's others that are taking the private route and closing with private mortgages. So it's a hard time out there for buyers closing
Hmm.
on new construction for sure at the
I
moment.
mean, what we're doing is we're actually, if any of our clients are coming to us and like, hey, we can't close on this, we need to sell it. We need to offload it for whatever reason. The builders aren't allowing that, for example. At that point, general advice. Again, this everyone would have advice tailored to their specific needs, but generally, we're recommending find a way to close. Find any way to close, because once you've closed, we can actually go to market on the MLS, listed on the MLS. Do what we need to do to get maximum exposure to that listing and get it sold for these clients. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes you're right. It makes absolutely no financial sense to close on a property. And the downside to that is you don't know how the builder's going to react.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. You just don't know what actions they're going to take after the fact. And we do have clients that have done that too, where they've figured out a way to close the deal, sell it, and in many ways you're kind of mitigating your damages potentially because you're in control of the sale price at that point. You know, a
Mhm.
builder can turn around and just sell it for whatever price just to sell it, versus you maybe managing it for a few months and then finding a buyer that's willing to buy it,
Yeah.
at a better price. So, by being in control,
Price is volatile, right? Your
yeah,
home's worth is only what a buyer is willing to pay. We've seen that
exactly,
time and time again. What your home's value was 2021, 2022 is no longer the case today.
yeah,
And we're seeing a lot of that pop up. So again, your home's worth, the value, the real dollar figure of your home, is going to be what a buyer is willing to
willing
pay
to pay,
today,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, so we've been doing our best to try and guide clients through that, on from the legal side of it, and having those conversations, and educating them, giving them an understanding of what a legal action means. What are the different costs associated with getting sued? How much that costs even to go through that process, because you might need a lawyer to defend you.
Right.
Um,
So we're talking strictly litigation.
Potentially, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah. So there's
Ed,
we just kind of different roads. You got to find which fork in the road you're going to take.
and as
And
unfortunate it is the reality today.
yeah, yeah,
More and more
especially in
buyers are
yeah,
having issues with closings. And
yeah,
look, at the end of the day, if there's one piece of advice I feel that we can extract from all of this conversation is know your options, do your due diligence. Don't just listen to me,
yeah,
right? Don't
yeah,
just listen
exactly.
to the next Tom or Harry out there talking about, oh, do this. Sure, listen to them, but have a consultation with the professionals in the industry and don't go off of he said, she said. Get real, professional, actual, practical advice.
Yeah,
Amazing. Ed, that's
yeah,
way more common than we had anticipated a couple of years ago. We've been hearing this a lot from the real estate perspective as well, that there are a lot of buyers out there who bought 2-3 years ago who are no longer able to close because either they're not getting financing or life circumstances have changed. They might not be in the same threshold of income they were before, or they might have been laid off in the last few months, and their circumstances have really not put them in a position to close on the property. What advice would you have for somebody, maybe not from like a finance perspective, but maybe from a legal perspective? What advice would you have for someone who does not have the ability to close on the property anymore?
well, I mean, there's different ways of getting around not having the ability to close. So, when you say not have the ability to close, there's always someone that has a level of some sort of ability to close. So, I've got some clients in some situations where they're just getting private mortgages on their primary home and one on the actual home that they're buying, or maybe getting a friend or family involved in the deal. And there's a lot of ILAs and independent legal advice meetings that are required to make sure everyone's understanding what they're doing or getting themselves involved in. So I think there's always a way to close. I think you just have to be creative and find a way to do it. But I think the biggest question you have to ask yourself is, financially, does it make sense to you, right? So now when you go into a deal and maybe you end up getting with three private mortgages just to close on a $650,000 condo, and you're paying, you know, $50,000, $60,000 in lender and broker fees, and then you got payments you got to make, interest only payments you got to make, and they're a high interest rate, and then it's usually for a year. So at the end of the year, you have to decide, okay, well, do I still want to continue this sort of path of private lending, or do I just walk away from this transaction? And when I mean by walk away, it's just sort of tell the builder, I'm not closing this deal. I can't close this deal, and I'm willing to let go of my deposits, and I'm willing to get sued by you. So whatever that turns out to be. So you'll never really know what the loss is if a builder is suing it, because they got to sell the property first. And if you put $100,000 into a unit and their losses are $100,000, well, they didn't really lose much, right? And so they're probably not going to sue you for anything else beyond that. Maybe they have commissions, maybe they have some other stuff, so you might get sued for a little bit. But so if you can figure out what the value of the property is, on the market, on the going, like a realistic market value of it, and then sort of calculate at that point, okay, what are my expenses if I was to actually close this with private funding, or some sort of like higher interest rate or anything like that. And what makes sense to you? Does it make sense to just kind of walk away and deal with the consequences and the repercussions of getting sued by the builder, or dealing with the financial burden of that private mortgage? And for some people, it makes sense, right? Because they'll hold it for 5, 10, 15 years anyways, and that potentially, hopefully, get through that, and markets go back up, and things will sort of stabilize and get better. So,
I mean,
you know,
it's never a guarantee that
never a
markets will always
guarantee.
go back up, but we do
Hopefully,
have a you know, if you go back 15 years, just 15 years, I would say even to a certain degree, 10 years, right? There's always going to be cycles of ups and downs.
yeah,
And if you look
yeah.
at
No
the
one
larger
really
picture,
knows. But it's at the end of the day, I always tell your clients, specifically in new construction deals, because a lot of them come back to you and they start complaining and they want to blame everyone but themselves for this decision. I sort of tell them, when the markets were great and people were making lots of money on these things, no one shared the profits with the builder or the realtor or anybody else. Kept them for yourself. And now, when we're starting to lose money on these transactions, everyone wants someone to share in the loss with them.
sharing the blame, essentially,
Yeah.
right?
And that's not fair. I think, you made that decision to go into it yourself. Now you got to deal with the consequences of
I feel a little bit conflicted though, because
it.
and don't get me wrong, we've been selling real estate. Just our team itself has, over 30 plus years of combined experience in real estate. And one thing we know for sure is at the end of the day, it is, yes, the client's decision, but it was a madhouse a few years ago. I mean,
Yeah,
house getting listed and not an hour goes by and it's got an offer accepted. Like we've seen such extremities. Same thing for pre-construction. It would not even be publicly open before homes were sold. Builders
right.
were making money.
Yeah,
Real estate agents were making money. Lawyers, real estate lawyers, mortgage agents, all of us were making money, right? And I feel, yes, it was different. There's a big aspect of FOMO in there as well.
for sure. Yeah.
And to a certain degree, can you blame the consumers? Can you blame homeowners because they feel like they were going to miss out? If not now, waiting a day could mean paying an additional $10,000,
Yeah, but that's
$15,000.
no different than investing in the stock market. Some crazy company comes out and you're scared you're going to miss out on investing on whatever that company is, new AI company or whatever. Yeah. You as an
I mean,
investor
look, this is
made that
not
decision
financial
on,
advice.
I know.
Disclaimer. This is not financial advice. This is not legal advice. Contact a professional before making decisions. Like that's one thing we know for sure, right? But I think we all
My
had a
point
role to
being is
play
what
in
I'm saying
this.
is that the builders don't necessarily have to agree to cooperate.
That's true.
They don't have, there's no legal obligation for them to cooperate in any way. And some do, and some don't, right? And so consumers need to understand that, you might be in a situation where there is no way out, and you're going to have to deal with whatever implications happen afterwards by not closing on that deal.
I mean, on one hand, you have to just roll up your sleeves and go in with a high interest mortgage, double, triple mortgages if it comes down to it. And whether that's by means of a traditional lender plus private mortgages, or if you decide to walk away, there's a high likelihood, especially in this market, where builders are going to come after you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I have clients that are getting sued by builders because they couldn't close on deals, and others will see what happens because they're too fresh, so we don't really
yeah,
know. But yeah,
you know what? I think this is a lot more common today than it was a few years ago.
absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that perspective. Let's talk about a little bit about who usually requires your services. So property law, well, the company, yes, but also real estate law in general. Who do you, I guess I want to say, who's your ideal client?
Our ideal client. That's a tough one. So, yeah, because there's different types of transactions we're doing, right? There's purchases and sales and all that sort of stuff. But I think if you were to look at it as a whole, and sort of ideal clients are ones that are organized. They have their documents ready to give to us, and we sort of usually give them a list of homework, and there's ones where we're constantly chasing after them. And to the day of closing, we're still chasing after them for certain documents or things that they got to give to us. So, ideal client definitely is one that is organized and has all of their documents ready and able to provide to us. I have some clients that share Google Drive or Drive OneDrive or whatever type of cloud storage type based software, and I just go in and pick up what I need from there, and they just kind of throw everything into it. So I would definitely say people that are organized, and that leads to, in a purchase transaction, someone that's organized usually goes through the sort of mortgage qualification process a lot better. And so, our biggest stresses are clients not having their mortgages in place on time. And we usually charge rush fees if we don't have them within 3 to 5 business days before closing, because, on our end, we sort of have to then put other people's things aside to rush to get yours prepared and ready for closing. So clients that have their mortgage instructions and mortgage documents prepared and ready and sent to us 2-3 weeks before closing is fantastic. That's a great client for us.
That's interesting because during the transaction, a lot of people like a lawyer, right? A lawyer for what, right? They don't necessarily think having a lawyer before like a deal goes through is really important, or unless something goes wrong, they're not thinking about that. Or like, oh, I'm just gonna, plenty of lawyers are out there who are going to be able to handle it. But there's a lot of misunderstanding, if I would say, even before that. So I guess what's one legal mistake or myth, if I may say, you wish homeowners understood better?
We do not do everything. We are limited to what we can do based on the information that we get. And there's just certain things that we can't do because of privacy information, things like that. There isn't sort of this miracle clause either that you can put in an agreement that sort of protects you either. I find a lot of clients, yeah, but my clause says that I can, it's like, yeah, sure, but not everything is just black or white. There's a lot of gray in law, and so it's very difficult. It comes down to very much an argument, negotiation of some sort, and it stems way outside of sometimes the clause in the agreement. And so, yeah, I'd say we're not miracle workers.
Thank you. Such a good point. There's definitely a lot more to real estate law than just closing and handling paperwork. There are definitely going to be some nuances here and there that throw people in a pickle. And the one word that we're seeing a lot being used recently is litigation. Is that something you guys can help with?
No, so we don't do litigation, but we do refer clients out for litigation to either a lawyer or paralegal. So if your file, if you're, whatever your loss is, if it's, let's say, less than $30,000, we would typically refer you to a paralegal. And it's something that you can probably do on your own in small claims court anyways. You don't really need a lawyer or a paralegal. A paralegal's there. It's great because they can kind of help you, guide you through the process with the court documents, file the claim, and all that stuff, defense or whatever it is. But you don't really necessarily need a lawyer in small claims court. And if anything's over 30,000, that's when you kind of probably should be going to a lawyer and speaking with a lawyer. So we have people that we usually refer clients to, and it really depends on what the issue is. If your dishwasher is broken, just go and buy a new dishwasher. There's no point of arguing over it. You're going to spend thousands of dollars arguing over something like that when you can just go and buy a new one. So it just depends on what the issues are.
It also comes down to the interest of time, right? Do you want to go through the hassle back and forth? Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to pay for that time. And whether that's client A or client B on the flip side, somebody's going to end up paying for it. Now, oftentimes, that will cost you more than just the cost of a dishwasher. So weigh your battles before and making decisions.
There is no point of fighting over something minor. I just don't believe in it.
Cool. So how do you support homeowners beyond the paperwork? Is there an educational platform or planning side to what you do, what property law does?
Yeah, I've always thought that our firm does a really good job at sort of setting expectations, and we're very much trying to educate the client throughout the process as we go through it. In some ways, a lot of people have never done a real estate transaction. It's usually their first one, or they haven't done one in 15 years or whatever it is, and things also change as time passes, and so we try and sort of give a nice guide when we start the whole process with the clients. We explain to them what we're doing, what we're not doing. Because I find with a lot of law firms, And we're trying to change this. But I find with a lot of law firms, it's sort of like a black hole. Like a file goes into the law firm, and then no one knows what's going on. Like it's just there, and things happen at some point at the end of it, and nobody knows what's been done or if anyone's even done anything, or if the right things were even done in the first place. And there's no checks and balances whatsoever. And so
We
what we've
call it
tried,
the void.
sorry,
We
with the
call it the
void,
void because there have been times where we've reached out. There's a lawyer helping out our client, and APS is signed, sent to the lawyer, and then nothing, zilch, no conversation. Then and we're like, hello.
yeah. Do you even have our agreement? Like, what's going on? So we try not to be the black hole or the void. So we explain to them at the beginning. We have a conversation. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do, and this is not including our legal fees. And I expect this if this was to happen. And so there's sort of like a planning and educational aspect of it. I find with a lot of first-time home buyers, there's a lot of questions at the beginning because they're usually trying to understand it more than the rest of us that have maybe done one or two transactions in the past. And so it's very much setting expectations, planning out the journey to the end, to the final closing date. So explaining to them, this is what's going to happen. This is when we need your money. This is when the keys are going to be released, like all that sort of stuff, right? That's the kind of planning stage. Education goes along the way. Sometimes more education is needed because of a specific scenario. Maybe there's a title issue. Maybe there's a building permit or something. Like today, I was just dealing with a client who's buying a brand new home who has a bunch of notices on title for building permits, demolition permits. The city is trying to get rid of them and trying to explain to them, what are lawyer undertakings and these sorts of things. So there's a lot of education because they just want to know, okay, how's this going to affect me? And so educating them on what all of that means. And then our software program that we have is sort of a two-way communication in the sense that we try and give notices to clients along the way as to what's happening on their file, sort of the journey through your file. So, it's got a little tracker at the top, and it's kind of like ordering a pizza. When your pizza is being baked and when it's finished and when it's boxed and when it's being delivered. Same idea. You're going to get your keys at some point. It's going to tell you when you're going to get your keys. And it's going to tell you when.
Domino's used to run this ad that 30 minutes or it's free. Is that
Yeah,
something you
no,
guys have?
So, we have the same concept basically, right? It's the pizza delivery tracker, and everyone uses it. Delivery companies use it. Everyone's got them now. But many law firms don't have that, and so we've built sort of our own software platform that allows us to also customize a lot of the nuances of communication, notifications, and notices that go out to clients. So they get notices along the way. Certain key stakeholders also, so like realtors, mortgage brokers will know certain things along the way as well. So that they're not in the dark trying to figure out if the mortgage was advanced by the lender or not. Did your deal close on a sale? These sorts of things, right? So
Love that.
just, open up communications, open up what's going on so that everyone knows what's happening, everyone's aware, less questions, less anxiety as you're going through the process because you know what's happening now. Hopefully, less anxiety.
I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? Like at the end of the day, everybody, our clients, us, you guys, we all want peace of mind and an understanding of where we are in the process. And
Yeah.
I think a tracker like that definitely alleviates some of the stress and where am I in the journey of being a
What's good
homeowner.
about it as well is it gives you the ability to upload your own documents to the file. So let's say as a realtor, you've got an amendment, change the price, change the closing date, maybe, and you didn't send it, but your team sent it. Well, our office will get a copy of that and upload it directly into the portal, but you yourself can actually upload it yourself. And on our end, we get notifications that this has been uploaded into this folder. Clients, have a secure way to upload their IDs. Many times lawyers are using credit cards for ID verification purposes. And so there's just like a lot of confidential information that's passing back and forth, and that gives them sort of peace of mind that they're uploading it themselves rather than going through some sort of email.
Interesting. So there's going to be a system in place that's secure and safe, but also just the entire process is, in my opinion, creating a lot of value for homeowners. And that peace of mind in the journey is invaluable. Now, speaking of homeownership, what's your experience been like being a homeowner in Ontario?
It's been a little bit more different for me just because I'm actually in the real estate industry. So I take care of a lot of the stuff on my own. But I mean, in terms of home ownership, it's been great. I think being able to, build up that equity as sort of your retirement nest egg and has worked out well for me. I've also, gotten into renovating homes and maybe things that may be a little bit more advanced than most homeowners.
So going back to that feeling, what's that feeling like for you of being, hey, I'm a homeowner? What does that feel to you? What does a home mean to you?
It's a place, for me, it's more like an investment, to be quite honest with you. I think, I think also growing up with my parents, immigrants, buying a home was the number one thing you needed to do was just buy a home and own a home and pay down your mortgage and not have a mortgage. And there's many investment advisors out there that will say the same thing. So I think it's just been ingrained into me that you got to buy a home because it's your place that you kind of raise your children, um, and build up your little nest egg for retirement one day and all that sort of stuff. I think our most recent home that we sold, we brought our two children home to that home, and that was probably the hardest one to sell. We've sold a few homes since before that, but I would say that having to sell the family home where both children came home to after they were born was probably the hardest one. I had a little bit of a, it was we were outside, or I was outside, and had a little chat with the house before we left. But yeah. Yeah, it kind of became the child of the other children. It was like this was the one that actually took care of us. It was the roof over our heads, and it kind of changed things a little bit after that. But now that we've sold that first one, now it's just buy another one, sell another one, buy another one, sell another one. As long as you're not losing a lot of money, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Thank you for sharing that, Ed. Before we wrap up, where can people connect with you? Where can they connect with Property Law?
Yeah. So if you want to reach out to us, you could definitely go on our website and request a contact from there. But you can also email us at welcome@propertylaw.ca. It's super easy to write out. We made that on purpose. And just reach out to someone, say, hey, I got a question. Maybe it's a legal question. Maybe it's just you want to get a price quote, an estimate on what the legal fees are. And our client success team will sort of reach out to you and give you a quote or reach out to one of the lawyers and get someone to reach out to talk to you about your legal question. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you again for joining us, Ed. Your time has been invaluable. What you've shared with us has been very resourceful, not just for me, but I'm sure for everybody who's listening out there. If you want to know more about property law or have a quick conversation with Ed, the details will be in the show notes or in the description if you're listening to it on YouTube. Now, I do not know what part resonated with you the most, but here's what I hope you took away. The guests we bring on the show are change makers. They're out here doing work that makes your life better. One home, one family, one conversation at a time. If that's something you want more of, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. New episodes will be dropping weekly. And if you want the highlights, tools, and guest takeaways straight to your inbox, go to ontariohomeownershow.ca and leave us your name and email. Thank you for listening in today. See you in the next one.